about anger, because, I mean, you mentioned in the article, and I've seen this elsewhere, that it's not just that people's anger shows up in social media, but that anger uniquely motivates people to share and to pay attention to what's on social media. Is that true?
So here we have to distinguish between most people and the people who post. And this is really crucial. A lot of people don't get this because we have this sense of like read the room. Like you get a sense of most people believe this or that.
Yeah.
And that you can have that when you're in a room with 30 people because you can see facial expressions. You just get a sense. But what happens with social media is, hundreds of millions of people are on it. And in any communication, there could be 7 people watching, 77,000. You don't know how many people are watching. And of the people watching, almost nobody is saying anything. Now, most people, my rule is almost everybody is decent. Almost everybody doesn't want to hurt other people. People are generally good, although human nature is complicated and we're tribal and we're competitive. We have all these good and bad motives. But when we interact on social media platforms, and they're called platforms for a reason, it is a stage upon which people choose to perform. So it's as if there had been human interaction, but then suddenly in the early 2000s or late 2000s, 2009, 2012, in that arena, we said, how about if we stop talking to each other? How about instead, let's all meet in the Roman Colosseum. And groups of people will go down in the middle and they'll fight it out and we'll cheer. It'll be really fun. And that obviously is terrible for democracy. And my God, is it terrible for young people's mental health. So it's not that people love to spread anger. It's that some people love to spread anger because they're paid by the tweet. They're paid by the post. And what I say in the article is that social media did not give us all voice. That's what Mark Zuckerberg keeps saying. How could it be wrong to give more people more voice? Mm-hmm. But it didn't give more people more voice. The 4 groups of people who use it most to spread, especially to spread anger, but the 4 groups are the far right, the far left, trolls, who are almost all men, not women, men who get prestige from attacking others and tearing them down. So trolls, and Russian intelligence agents. The Russian Internet Research Agency has been very skillful. They launched their campaign. They began in 2013, but it really heated up in 2014. They began a really concerted campaign to divide us, make us hate each other, think that everybody's racist, fascist, sexist. So social media is not about what most people do. It doesn't make most of us into jerks, but it super empowers the jerks and it super empowers the political extremists. That's not a democracy. When you have a public square owned by a corporation incentivized to make us fight, like the Roman Colosseum, and 4 groups are using it, you can't have a democracy if that's what your public square is.
I have noticed this dynamic at work in real life in churches, congregations, where there was a time when I would say to people, okay, you've got maybe 10% of your congregation that's angry or disgruntled or sowing division. 90% of the people are with you. Now, that dynamic just doesn't work because the 10% are able to really govern what goes on in the congregation. And so if you have, I said to someone one time, it's almost like a homeschooling co-op that I knew one time that had some flat earthers involved. Okay. And what they started doing was just not saying things like global. Just because they didn't want to go through the, or they just don't want to go through the group of it all. Yeah, and I thought, this is exactly what often goes on in churches is that most people are just saying, can we really afford 6 months of just warfare over whatever it is? And so you just yield to it and self-censor. Mm-hmm. And then before you know it, that is actually controlling the atmosphere.
That is a great example. I'm going to use that if I may, because that really gets at the central dynamic. So there have been 100 articles written on how social media is destroying society and democracy. What I hope is new about my essay is that I'm a social psychologist, and I was really going down deep into the social motivations. how do our social motivations change when you change the architecture of the platform? You change the payoffs to different subgroups of people. That's the question. And one of the many metaphors in the piece is, so there's this great quote from one of the engineers who developed the retweet button at Twitter. And years later, he was interviewed in Wired magazine, and he said he regretted what he had done because he said they watched the Twitter mobs forming. And he said, he thought to himself, we've just handed a loaded gun to a 4-year-old. And that really stuck with me. And that's the metaphor that I took. It's not actually that Twitter's a gun, or Facebook is not a gun. It doesn't kill people. I mean, there are some exceptions, but we won't even talk about that. It's more like a dart gun. It's more like you get to shoot a little dart into somebody's arm, and it hurts. Like, you're not going to die. But, I've never been shot with a dart, but we've all gotten shots at the doctor. Imagine a really painful metal thing shooting. That would hurt. Plus, if you get shot with a dart, there could be 100 more coming. You just don't know. It could be 0 more. It could be 100 more. You just don't know. So now imagine that you're leading anything. You are leading a congregation. You're leading a homeschooling group. You're a president of university. And you've always known you've got some difficult members. And you've learned how to deal with them and how to sort of, keep the reasonable people in charge. And that's the way it's always been. There have always been unreasonable people. But now suddenly, around 2011, 2012, when the platform, the participation in these hyper-viralized platforms is skyrocketing, around 2012, let's say, somebody passes out dart guns everywhere. Billions and billions of dart guns. Everyone in the world gets a dart gun. And most people don't want to shoot anyone. They just put it away in the closet. They don't use it. But these 4 groups of people, the far left, the far right, the trolls, and the Russian agents, these 4 groups of people are totally excited. Like, wow. We actually get, the more we shoot, the more money we get. Oh, sign me up. And so these 4 groups of people are shooting.
Or the more status, because
that's what I mean. Yes,
if I attack people who I consider to be more significant in some way or the other, then I'm actually gaining prestige.
Exactly. That's right. So the metaphor, I didn't mean literally money. What I meant was like social currency. And especially for young people, they don't care that much about money. They care much more about their follower count and their prestige. So you get this prestige economy, and whoever shoots, and especially, you're right, it's not just shooting anyone. If you shoot a high value target, you get more prestige. So people shoot their leaders. So what happens to all of our institutions? Imagine a pastor with a congregation with a few extremists who make life difficult, and suddenly those extremists have dart guns and they can shoot anyone they want. They mostly shoot the pastor. They mostly shoot the leader. So people leading every organization, TV networks, the New York Times, Yale, all these organizations got stupid at the same time because the dart guns were passed out. The ability of a nobody, a disgruntled nobody, to publicly humiliate or accuse anybody of anything with no proof. The rules on Twitter are you must take things out of context. You're not allowed to put things in context. It's just a very short screenshot. So this is my diagnosis, that America became structurally stupid all of a sudden between 2014 and 2018. It hit not all of our institutions, but certainly things that lean left became all left. Things that lean right became all right, because the people with dart guns, they're shooting the leaders and they're shooting the moderates. So if you're center left and you say, well, now wait a second, maybe it's not a good idea to defund the police. Boom, 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 you get shot up. If you're center right and you say, well, now wait a second, maybe Donald Trump is leading down a path we shouldn't go on. Boom, 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 you get shot up. And once the moderates go quiet, it's the extremists who now control.